In this video, we're going to talk about how to solve a linear inequality. So let's say I have to solve the inequality 5y minus 8 is less than 12. Alright, so it looks a little bit harder than an equation, but it actually is not harder. We do all the same things that we do to solve an equation. There's just one slight thing that may end up different at one point, and I'll make sure to mention that. So we want our y alone, so we have to add 8 to both sides. And we get that 5y is less than 20. And again, since we want our y alone, we have to divide both sides by 5. And we get that y is less than 4. And so as you can see, everything was exactly the same as solving an equation. Nothing changed. However, if you're multiplying or dividing at any point in this procedure, if you multiply or divide by a negative number, something does change. So let's look at another example to see how that works. Okay, so here we're being asked to solve the equation 2x plus 1 is less than or equal to 6x minus 1. Alright, so we have variables on both sides, but not a big deal. We're used to this from solving or equations. So we do the same thing that we are used to doing. So because I want to ultimately have this work out in a certain way, I am going to subtract 6x from both sides. So we're going to have to work with a negative number later on, and that's totally okay. So if we subtract 6x from both sides, remember we're trying to get the x's on one side and the numbers on the other side, we get on the left side 4x, negative 4x plus 1, that goes away, is less than or equal to negative 1. Alright, so again, we're trying to get everything away from our x's because we want the x's on one side and the numbers, the constants, on the other side. So I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides so we can get rid of that on that side. And we have here that negative 4x is less than or equal to negative 2. Alright, so we have just one more step here in order to get that x alone. We have to divide by negative 4. Since we're multiplying by negative 4, we have to divide by it to get rid of it. And whatever we do on one side, we have to do to the other side. However, the rule states that when you're dividing or multiplying by a negative number, we have to flip the sign. So let's write that down because that's pretty important. So in an inequality, when multiplying or dividing by a negative number, flip the sign. Alright. So let's go ahead and do that and see what we get. We have on the left side x. Now, since we divided by a negative number, our sign changes to greater than or equal to. And on the right side, we have negative 2 over negative 4, which in fact gives us x is greater than or equal to a half. Now, because this was a little weird and we're not that used to inequalities, you may want to check this. You may want to just make sure that this is in fact true. So you can go back to the very original equation that we had and try plugging in a number that is greater than or equal to a half. I choose 1 because 1 is pretty easy to work with. So if x was 1, we would get on the left side 2x plus 1 gives us 3, and if x is 1, still 1, 6x minus 1 is equal to 5. And it is true that 3 is less than or equal to, but less than 5. So therefore we know that flipping our sign was a good idea, and x is in fact greater than or equal to a half.